Between the episodes on Eisenholm. I lived! Fueled by gallons of soup and a whole bunch of orange juice, I made a surprising amount of progress between fever dream naps as I battled with having the flu for well over a week. Huge thank you to everyone for the well wishes. Deciding it was high time we got a taste of iron in order to get the rest of our chiseling tools made, I took a trip down to where I had found a decent hematite reading near the salt mine. Following incrementally higher readings, I settled on a spot in the middle of the swamp area with a very high hematite propic reading. Not only was the iron bountiful, but so were the amounts of drifters that really didn't like me being down there. In between trips to the iron mine, I decided to get started on collecting fire clay for all of the bloomeries we'd soon need, and of course, with it being the dead of winter, I had to occasionally toast my buns using the traditional Eisenholm method. After a few rounds of this, I think we might have enough fire clay bricks for a bit. Once they're all fired, of course. I should really expand my pit kiln area. With the first set of iron blooms fresh out of the oven, I fashioned myself an iron pickaxe, a blackguard sword, a hand planer, and a hand wedge. I kept processing ingots for a while, crafting a few other tools while I was at it before the fever dreams came calling once more.
You are powerless before my beautiful rot.
Remembering that I had made a few storage vessels a little while back, I popped them down into our basement, and using a few of the lead ingots we had left, started replacing some of the placeholder blocks upstairs with proper window panes. With all the chisel tools we'd need to start prettying up the rest of the farmhouse, it was time to go on a massive resource collection spree. Our first stop? Lead. Not just for the remainder of our window panes, but for more Molybdo Chaco's lanterns down the line. A quick trip north to the Shale Island where we had gathered our initial copper bits, and the lead was soon in hand. While I was out that way, I swung by that large walnut tree to the northeast to test out our new iron axe. Then it was back home to cast some lead ingots. While they cooled, I cut down most of the birch trees in the area to saw into boards for our dining room ceiling and second-story flooring. Using a few of the leftover boards, I made some extra chests and finally upgraded that last remaining kitchen cabinet chest into a trunk. Now nothing was stopping us from finishing the basement. Except for a lack of conglomerate. At least I could put in some oak pillars for now. By this point, the lead ingots had long cooled, so I gathered them up and put together some more window panes. And this must have been the day my fever was at its highest, because I didn't notice that I had made them out of birch rather than oak for a few real-life days. That's alright though. I still think they blend in well enough. Luckily, when making the railings for our balcony, I caught that I was using birch planks before making too many fences, and quickly switched to oak. With that sorted, it was time to clear out my inventory and get to the next gathering mission. Rocks. I wanted to finally test out the quarry mod, which ended up being far simpler than I thought it would be. Before I knew it, I had a few big ol' slabs of rock. I quickly made a set of iron tools from the quarry mod so I could get to processing the slabs, and never before has so much stone been so manageable. With various shapes of rock blocks in hand, it was time to get the basement sorted. Starting with the cellar, I got the ceiling and walls filled in with a mix of conglomerate ashlar blocks, cobblestone, and dry stone. Getting the shelves in place, our cellar is now ready to go. We'll fill the bottom row in with more storage as we build up our food stores. Next up was getting the rest of the basement walls textured up and ceilings filled in with the same mix of conglomerate blocks. I'm holding off on decorating these other two rooms for the moment since their purposes will very likely change as we build up more of the eventual town. Heading upstairs, I used oak logs to create a trim to transition from our stone walls into the wood that will make up the floor, creating a nice 45-degree join in the corner by mixing two different orientations of chiseled oak logs. With the upper landing sorted, it was time the stairs got some attention. I wanted to make them look nice without going too fancy. This is a cozy farmhouse and not a noble's manor after all. I played with a few different designs before settling on pine steps over top of a birch frame and made liberal use of the pantograph to copy the shape onto each step. Continuing with the upper floor, it was finally time to take out all that packed dirt in favor for some more birch. I contemplated a lighter wood like larch or bald cypress, but birch just felt cozier, like the right blend of bright, but not too bright. And while I was at it, I also filled in the rest of the oak planks for our balcony. I still have an internal debate going on whether I want to add a chert trim around the edges of the ceiling for the rest of the ground floor, or if that should remain in the kitchen to give it a bit more of a focus. The kitchen is the main focal point for this small homestead after all. Now, I'm going to give my voice a break for a moment so you can enjoy this little time lapse of the outer walls being given the depth and texture that they deserve. Now, I didn't want to finish the window trim for all of the windows just yet, since I might want to modify a few of them. Taking a break from building for a brief moment, I set sail to purchase more brown clay bricks. Our building materials trader to the south didn't have any, so I took a looping path around the north side of the mountain over to the trader we had found in the sandstone area. Luckily, they had some, so I bought out their entire stock. The trip back was tense as I was both freezing and starving. Thankfully, putting on a couple pots of porridge would remedy both of those ailments. If only it were that easy in real life. Bricks in hand, I set to work putting together a fireplace upstairs, throwing some debarked pine into the mix for a nice mantel. Jumping between tasks a bit, I blame my fever for that, I trimmed down the windowsills a bit and finished off the remaining window trims before putting a couple of candles on the fireplace mantel. Until we harvest some honeycomb in the spring, these candles may get commandeered at some point to make some more lanterns. Now, since we've got almost everything but the kitchen sink done, it was time to get the kitchen sink done. I popped a wooden bed into the upstairs bedroom before coming across a safety concern. Having the hay bales up against our newly chiseled outer walls was somehow causing drifters to spawn in just the right way in order to phase through onto the kitchen counter. Yeah, that couldn't be left as is. We'll have to find a new home for our hay bales, but for now, they'll sit in a chest. After putting it off long enough and going through several designs trying to find the right mix of nice but not too nice for our farmhouse, it was finally time to get the ground floor put in. Starting with a ring of granite ashlar blocks, I filled in the middle of the floor with some simple oak planks. I then chiseled the edges of the ashlar blocks to make everything a little less uniform. The oak portions of the floor sit recessed in by one voxel just to add a bit of depth, and I added little feet to the table and bench legs with slate rocks so they wouldn't be floating. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, and I'll likely be using some of the more intricate test designs later on in the series when we get to building fancier structures. With a bit of quick cleanup around the staircase down to the basement, I once again made my way upstairs to continue replacing the packed dirt with more permanent materials. I opted for oak slabs, both to raise the ceiling slightly and to tie it in with the oak-heavy attic space. Strangely, slabs can insulate a space as being indoors, while full blocks chiseled down to the size of a slab don't. It's likely something to do with what percentage of the block is left after chiseling. I'm not too sure, but I'm not gonna question it. It just works. Now, out of all the surprises I could have come across, I didn't expect a Blair Witch Project reference. You get out of my home! Inside was getting a little spooky, so outside it was to finish the balcony. I went with layers of sticks for an overhang to have a nice visual distinction from the slate roofing. The beauty of using stick layers is that while they have a nice open and airy feel, they still block snow and rain, so I can have a nice outdoor cookout without having to worry about my fire being put out. I did have to stop partway through just to gather more sticks, since I had run through my entire supply between burning them for warmth and using 9 sticks per layer to put together the awning. A bit of hedge trimming and a couple of chiseled supports later, and our balcony was looking mighty fine. After sorting out the balcony, I had just 2 more tiny modifications to get to. I changed the front-facing window in our bedroom to a 2x3 so we could more easily look out upon our fields and take in the oceanfront view. Then, heading up to the attic, I popped in that dormer window I'd originally planned on having. And then, as luck would have it, my fever finally broke. My throat eased up on feeling like sandpaper, and after what felt like an eternity in the grips of sickness, we come to today, where my voice is mostly back after being sick for a while. Still have a little bit of a rasp to it, but otherwise, I'm doing pretty okay. Between gathering, fever dreams, and building, it's been a bit of a wild ride. So, we got our basement mostly finished up, we just need some more storage vessels. Our living room floor all nice and tidy in place with a bit of a recessed wood look and stone framing. I might blend it a little bit into the staircase, just so it's not as abrupt of a change. Speaking of staircases, we can't forget we got these stairs going up to the second floor all prettied up. Some slightly fancy window trims. Now, some of the windows up top are birch, but I think they blend in well enough to the oak that we can't really tell the difference. And we've got the beginnings of our fireplace ready to go. I'll probably line the bottom with polished chert rock or something like that. Now, for the top mantle, I do want probably a couple more candles, a lantern on the other side, and in the center, one of those small chests, like an owl chest or something like that. Now, I'm quite pleased with how the balcony turned out here. The layers of sticks really give a nice kind of patio covering without being too enclosed kind of feel. You have a decent view with a little bit of light coming in our attic up top. Good old view of the lake that's kind of half frozen over at the moment. And a Really liking how the thicker walls outside have turned out. Gives a little bit of a bulk to them. And I've had them come out by 1 voxel every block it goes down. So we start with basically a half slab up top, and then just come out 1 voxel at a time. Didn't turn out half bad, if I say so myself. With a lot of work done on the house, I think we should probably take a step back from the house and start prepping for spring. And what is it exactly that we're going to need for spring? We gotta start marking out where other buildings might go. I think our first focus, apart from not going snowblind, get in the shade. I think one of our first focuses is going to be getting a barn in place. We definitely want to know where that's going to go, and we're going to need a few different stables, shall we say. Pigs will probably be my first priority because they have a lot of babies all at once, and a lot of meat and a lot of fat, and that's kind of our main want from them. Dairy is going to be a secondary. Secondary. Milk jokes. But I think in total we're going to end up having 3 separate stables. One for pigs, one for sheep and goats, and then a hutch for chickens. A coop. A coop is for chickens. A hutch is rabbits. Which we might do. Maybe. I don't think they're quite as useful as the others. They're just going to be like tiny pigs. But I'm thinking, around the back here, yeah, I still haven't worked on the chimney there. There's work to be done still on the house, but that's okay. We'll get to that when we get to that. We've done a lot of progress. We'll give a little bit of distance from the house here. For location, the one that matters the most will eventually be the chicken coop. That might be the easiest for me to populate, actually, because I think there's chickens somewhere over those hills. But before we get to marking out exactly where these are going to go, let's grab ourselves a bit of food and grab the shears. Alright, with food's in our bellies, back out in the backyard here. Let's clear away these bushes and see what we're working with for terrain. Plus, while we're at it, we can replenish our stick supply. Okay, so we've got things cleared out. We have lost our daylight, but that's okay. We've got this nice bit of open, rolling valley, and that is actually a bit of a pond. And that's a rift. But I think... what is this? Also a tiny pond. I think if we smooth out this hill a little bit, we might have ourselves a nice workable area for our various stables. So I think I'll make myself a few shovels during the night here and wait for those drifters to despawn at first light. So I'll see you in the morning for a little bit of terraforming that I said I probably wouldn't do until after the snow melted, but doing a little bit now won't be too bad. I'm just not going to terraform the entire area until the snow's gone. And that's when we plot out the rest of all the big builds. Kind of get a general idea of the shape of the area. And good morning, we're back outside, and I have a pretty full inventory of shovels. They're only flint, but we're going to end up going through them mighty quick. Now my first step, I'm going to smooth down this hill a little bit here. Probably taking off a good few layers, trying to smooth out this area as much as possible. The slight elevation change is fine, but I want it to be a nice, stable, workable land just to make some easy builds around. Starting to think most of the soil right along the side of the house here might be peat. There's a good chunk of it in this area, so I'll hold off on digging that. Let's just pile it up a little higher here. good chunk of peat so far. And it's not even done being dug. Well, I'll keep digging that peat out in between the episodes, most likely, but this flat area here, not too far from the house, but enough of a distance where when we're just roaming around in there, the animals aren't going to be aggressive or startled or even detect that we're there. We're going to have a good bit of distance. Plus, it'll give us room to maybe put some crops out here if we fill in the valley. You know, expand the farm. This is another little lake here. I might keep that as is. I'm not entirely certain. But we'll start a little closer over here for the barn, and we'll go from there. Let's get a little bit of that sunlight back and warm up first, though. Okay, so we're just going to mark out the footprint with a bit of packed dirt here. Now I'm thinking the front corner, I want to have a bit of a gap between the house and a bit of distance away. So this corner here, and probably this elevation, in all honesty, will probably be a good spot. So from this corner here, we're going to end up going 9 blocks deep and 19 blocks long, which is probably actually going to cover up that bit of a lake that we've got over here. So we'll probably end up filling this in, but that's okay. Put this at 17. Let's see, actually. 16. 15. Yeah. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Where is that having us sit in relation to the house? Not too bad. So this corner of the barn here, animals may detect us from inside the house, but that's okay. This is mainly going to be the pig section, and then I'll have other animals kind of over in here. There'll be a bit of a different shape to it. This is just a large rectangular area for the bulk of the building. Let's get that depth in there. So we got 1, 2, 3, 9. Not too bad. Not too bad at all. Just gonna dig out the rest of this so I can finish marking the edge of the perimeter. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I did 20, okay. My mistake, actually counted out 20. I want uneven numbers, so that's better. It pulls us 1 back from the house. There we go. So much in the same way that we'd use wool in that other block game, we're just gonna use packed dirt to mark out the footprints for a lot of these builds. And for this end here, we might have another 5. That doesn't come out enough. No, let's come out another 2. Yeah. I'll probably end up filling in this little valley bit here. I think I've got a couple of oak trees planted in there that once it warms up they might grow, but I'll probably end up just relocating them and filling in the ground. But this area here, once the once the land's been filled back in, this will probably be a lot of covered outdoor storage for all of our hay bales and piles of firewood and peat and everything like that. Just a good spot near the animals, so we keep the we keep a lot of the supplies for outside. The more that I'm looking out back here, if we're going to have a lot going on out here, I may end up at some point in the future adding a small balcony out the back here, probably turning where this window is just into a door. And just having a nice little veranda to look out upon whatever kind of barnyard area and probably other fields and crops. Or, honestly, the roads to the rest of the town as well. Now, somewhere over there, or I believe I had started to dig in a quarry, hello rift, this area going into the mountain, right near our tunnel down to the lava hole is probably going to end up being our eventual workshop. I want to build it into the actual mountain itself. I've got some interesting plans for having sort of a reclaimed ancient technology kind of place. Give myself an excuse to have a little bit more modern-ish, or at least getting into some kind of steampunk fantasy designs. Oh, here's our hot spring. I'm gonna have to do something with this soon as well, because we have yet to get a single temporal gear, and I want to figure out some kind of design here with all of the new spawn mechanic changes, just to take advantage of it and get ourselves a good source of profit from the boys that come out of these guys. So once we've got temporal gears, not only can we set our spawn inside the house, but we can get ourselves working on those translocators and teleport around. Alright. Still have dirt in the walls up there. I'll sort that out, but this will take priority. But this will also be our big project for next episode. Getting this barn all up and underway, and maybe, hopefully, actually successfully catching some animals in some traps. We'll head out and lay the traps and hope for the best. But anyway, I think that'll just about do it for this episode. I'm still having my voice recover a little bit, throat's a little raspy. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I'd also like to give a special shout out to our channel members. You guys are great. You're awesome. You help keeping the cats fed. But as always, I'll see you next time when we build a barn. Bye. I'm gonna turn you into an animal trap. Get some little pigs. Okay, baskets, you're coming with me. I need your reeds.